Welcome back to another episode of Hobby Time in the Murder Basement, where today I get to sit down and talk with Ben Kantor from Metal AF Miniatures. He's easily one of the strongest miniature artists in the United States active these days. We have a fantastic conversation. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you for being here.
How you doing tonight, man?
I am good. I'm nice and cooled down now with a cool beverage. It's my trademark coconut water.
I'm doing my trademark live kombucha root beer flavor. It is fantastic. Okay. It tastes like root beer, but it's also kombucha. So it helps.
We both got the hippie drinks.
Dude, ever since I had to stop drinking, like, I needed to find something that actually made me feel like I was drinking, because, like, that's part of the fun about slinging a beer, is it, like, tastes like you're drinking a 9-volt battery, and, you know, like, regular soda doesn't do that, and so you need, like, kombucha has that weird, like, effervescence to it that you're like, oh, hell yeah, this is great.
Can you do non-alcoholic beer, or is that, like, cheating?
There is a brand that's actually made here in St. Louis called Well Brew or Wellness or something like that, and they use a weird technique where it, like, through osmosis pulls all the alcohol out, but it tastes like a Hefeweizen. Hefeweizen tastes like a Hefeweizen. My only problem is it makes me want to, and it triggers that kind of, like, latent alcoholic bug in my brain where I'm like, oh, now I just want to drink 3 or 4 of these tonight instead of, like, enjoying just one. So it's frustrating.
There's also, like, a psychological thing if you think that you're doing something that you have the symptoms of the thing that you think that you're doing. So it's like, even if you're drinking non-alcoholic beer, if you thought it was alcoholic, you might just start getting drunk.
Well, and I have a friend who, like, he, up until his wife got, like, terminal brain cancer, basically went from, like, her breast to, like, every part of her body. He had been sober for, like, 12 years, and he would, like, show up with, like, near beers and stuff at parties, and you were like, do you even like this? He's like, yeah, I mean, like, I hang out and have one. And then, like, as soon as, like, the diagnosis came, he started, you know, just, like, smoking weed all the time, and, like, because she was on it for her to help her keep her medication down. So it was just, like, the thing that they did. And now, like, while weed is still the thing, alcohol never came back, and he just doesn't do it at all, because it's like he has something completely different, and he realized that was probably what he was missing from his life the entire time. It's just a little too high strung to be a drinker. The weed was the perfect blend to help him balance him out. It was to see him navigate those waters. It was, I mean, like, we were nervous for him. Drugs were a thing that were difficult for him past.
Yeah. I think alcohol is my least favorite substance. It doesn't really do anything for me.
Oh, yeah?
I like the taste of whiskey. I drink some whiskey and scotch, but I do not like getting drunk. It does not feel good.
Yeah, and the older you get, the worse it is. Like, I had one drink a couple months ago, just as, like, I'm helping a local restaurant out. This is where they make all their money. And the next day, like, it was one drink, and 37. This is, I should be able to have a drink and have it not be a thing.
Yeah, they used to call me 3 martini superhero, because this was like 10 years ago. Because I would have 3 martinis, and then, it got, like, unlocked, and, like, midway through that third one. But now I get pretty messed up off of, like, I'm not gonna say 1 martini, but, like, definitely the second one is like, it's too much.
Yeah, you're halfway through the second one, you're like, uh-oh, that teeter-totter has tipped.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that I'm in good company there, because, I would like to be more, like, that was like a cool thing as like you grew up and you're hanging out with friends and you're just partying, and like it was just part of the culture. And now without it, and like I don't know about you, but like everybody talks about like Adepticon and like getting wasted with their favorite painters and stuff like that. I'm like, God, that sounds so fun. Although I am such an old guy, I don't know if I can actually hang with that anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'd say first of all, I'm pretty sure we're almost exact same age.
Oh yeah.
I'm also 30 or 37 this month. So
I'm 37 in a week and a half. So yeah, we're
I'm literally 1 month older than you then.
Nice.
So okay.
Nice.
So yeah. Also, like I think that the average is I was at Adepticon 2018, 2019, and I would have gone this year, and I can tell you that I think like the average painter age, I mean, it's not scientific, I don't know, but definitely mid 30s, like seems about average. There's definitely plenty of people that are in their 40s.
Oh, I mean,
so it's not like a super young crowd or anything.
No, and it's just the way that people talk about it, and like I assume that it's like people living up their heyday feel like, oh yeah, we're totally going to do this, but really in practice it's like they had like one drink and that's what they did, and not like the devastating on the floor drunks as we would have been in our 20s. But I think this hobby is getting younger. Like right now it feels younger, and I've noticed that even just in like the 3 years of me doing the hobby, I'm like, it definitely feels like there is a bunch of new players in like mid 20s that it's exciting. It's exciting seeing new blood come in all the time, because they're pushing the needle in very different ways, probably in similar ways that I think you push the needle with painting, as like saying like this is like environmental lighting should be done a certain way. They're like saying content creation needs to be done a different, and it's just like reaching everybody in different places.
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of interesting, which is like I think that there's like a certain Venn diagram of people. You have like one circle in the Venn diagram is content creators, and then I think one circle in the Venn diagram is miniature painters who are quote unquote like pushing things. And there's some maybe slight overlap in those two circles, but I think largely there's two mostly different circles. And then if you want to complicate the Venn diagram a little, there's like people who are wargamers. So there's like, there's people who do content creation who aren't wargamers at all. And then, I don't know, it's a complex web of different overlapping things.
So do you wargame at all, or are you just like loving the painting? That where your heart lies in the hobby?
I started off wargaming like in the 90s, but I think my total amount of miniature games that I've played in the past, well, let's see, I went to Gen Con 2015. I mean, would have gone this year. Would have gone this year. Would have done this year. Is always 100% applicable for me for this year. So whatever. We'll just pretend 2020 doesn't exist. Sure. So when I say the last 5 years, so I went the last 5 Gen Cons, and each one of those Gen Cons, I played exactly one miniature game. So I played 5 miniature war games in the past 5 years. But it was a good time. It's always a good time at Gen Con.
That's I mean, I think that's a pretty good relationship to have with the game, because it takes such like a dedication and obsessiveness to like be good and be in it and be on top of the rules, that like if you could just like have like the one-off flirtatious fling with it and be like, oh god, we had a good time, I'll see you next year, like that's a pretty awesome feeling.
Well, yeah, I think so. And then I also think that my idea of how fun those games are is like totally incompatible with how fun they actually are. Yeah. Because I remember like my idea is like so kind of clouded by nostalgia, and I remember all those like awesome moments where like, I remember specific moments like, oh, rolled triple sixes and like, messed his guys up and like huge swing turnaround. Like there's a lot of really exciting moments, but then I think what you forget about is all of the dead space, like all of like the waiting for your opponent to do their turn. Like, I'm just going to go get some like nachos and like a 40-ounce Coke while you like figure your moves out. And just like the amount of just so much time spent waiting, and like, I don't know, even a back and forth game like a Necromunda, which is like the last one I played at Gen Con, it's still like, it's a huge time investment. Like a lot of games you can knock out, a dozen rounds in the same time it takes you to play one round of some of these games.
Yeah, it's one thing that like I love Games Workshop's models. I love the books. Specifically, I love the fact that I got an Audible subscription and I can just sit there and hobby and listen to a cool novel about the grimdark future. But I find myself wondering if like if it's just a bunch of sadistic people working on the games division, because it's like they've forgotten player agency, and like the games can be fun with the right friends and the right group of people. They are very fun, but there's so much downtime that like you find yourself just being like, you just tell me how many like fours I have to roll, and you know, like I start to like, especially the bigger games, I'm just like tune out. Like, I need a smaller, like 1,000 point or less game. 40K is fine with the full 2,000. I die. I can't handle emotionally.
Yeah, I remember in the 90s, in the late 90s, trying to play like actual 2,000 point games. And it would be like we would start in like the early afternoon, and then we would get set up and like argue over like terrain placement and like how like just the orientation of the board, and then like slowly start the game. And then like by the time we got through like 1 to 2 rounds, it was like, oh, this guy's got to go home, and then
Yeah, his
it
mom's
just falls apart.
Pick him up.
And I don't think we ever got through a full game.
I believe it.
Like,
I absolutely believe it. Like, I think that's probably why I was more of a Magic the Gathering, because you could just like blast through a couple games. You know, you'd win, you'd lose, and you'd lose, you'd lose, and then you'd be like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. But you'd watch like the people playing the tactical games, just hours.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I played Magic too. I've had a on and off relationship with Magic, where I'll play ultra hardcore for like 6 to 12 months and then totally abandon it and then come back.
It's such a mean mistreater, man. You just like, it gets you every time. You're like, God, these cards are cool, this thing, and then you're just like, what am I doing with my life?
I've been playing lately though. I've been playing online the Magic Arena, which seems like kind of a little bit of a game changer, because you can just hop in. I play limited, so I just hop in, draft a deck, play some matches, and then just bounce. And it's not like, it's pretty easy.
Yeah, I need to do a little bit more of that. I've been doing Hearthstone. During COVID, I was going to teach myself how to draw, because I'm a shitty artist. Like, flat out, I'm a shitty artist. I can paint miniatures, but give me a piece of paper and I suck. And so I was going to learn how to do like layered digital art. Going to teach myself how to do it. So I got myself a tablet. I did a couple gradient studies, and then I instantly was like, let's get Hearthstone and put it on this thing. And like, I through a lot of COVID shutdown just like played Hearthstone, which is Blizzard's Magic.
Yeah, have you played Battlegrounds on Hearthstone?
I love it.
Okay, yeah.
I love it.
That's what I do.
The tavern brawls are fun, and like any of the like weird things where they're just like give you like random decks that do insane shit. I'm like, give me this. This is so much fun.
Yeah, I'm big on any kind of limited like drafting game. So I was kind of like in and out, like not really passionate about Hearthstone at all. But then with the new Battlegrounds, I think it's like a perfect limited drafting game.
Yeah, the competitive Hearthstone is like, I'm been so out of the meta, and man, I don't know what it is about like all these games and a meta that you have to chase and you have to follow. It gets to be such a drag to like follow what is the new trend in them. Like, I would much rather just like pick up random stuff, try to make what works with it. Like, played this game called Dice Master. I love rolling dice. I think that it's a very fun part of the hobby. Dice Masters, as done by Eric Lang. It's great game design. And so we would do that like every Tuesday night, draft dice and like roll Marvel characters at each other bar. And it was like one of the best game groups I've ever had, because it was like a game that was supportive. It was a really small, tight-knit group of people, so you didn't have a whole lot of like attitude and bullshit there. And all of the players were like nationally ranked, so like you couldn't not get good. you played with them, you had to get good. It was like one of the best things. Unfortunately, I think WizKids did that one. I can't even remember any. Whoever was doing it they totally killed the franchise.
Yeah. I think I played that one once or twice. Again, that's it. I don't know if you've ever been to Gen Con, but at Gen Con you play like, probably try like 50 plus games in 4 days. And I definitely played many different dice games. And I think I probably played that one.
So Gen Con is a weird thing for me because like it's in Indianapolis, which is not that far away. It's a drive, but like finding a place to stay when you have 70,000 nerds like descending on such like a kind of a redneck town. Like they call themselves Hoosiers there with pride. It's not like here in Missouri, if you call someone a Hoosier, it's still a jab. They're just straight up Hoosiers and own it. They talk about it on the news, like this Hoosier did that, and you're like, this is a wild time. But they have this love of gaming there that is not just war games. It's not just like board games. It's D&D. It's this whole thing that like I didn't realize how vast that convention was, and it sounds like an awesome time.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty. I would say if there was one must hit in a year for me, it would definitely be Gen Con, because it's you go to Adepticon. Adepticon's like I think super important for miniature painting, but that's all. I mean, at least for me, that's all it is.
Right.
Whereas like Gen Con, I go with my friends, like my friends from high school. They don't do miniature painting at all, but then I also see miniature painting people. So I'm like, going around with like my crew, we're playing games, I'm running into people I know from miniature. It's like all different circles of people. So
doesn't Vince go to Gen Con, and Lynn does all the painting stuff there, and get people like Duff showing up and Shoshi's there. Like a lot of the big names do go to.
Yeah, I actually took my first painting class ever from Lynn Stahl at Gen Con. Yeah, like 5 years ago. That was I'd never taken a painting class before.
Okay, that's fucked up. So you've been painting minis for 20 years now, right? Like you started in high school.
Well, yeah, so I painted in high school, and like I was probably actually the worst painter in my group. But then so yeah, but when I went to college in 2001, I just totally dropped it. Like I dropped most things, because you have to make grades or whatever, which I found out actually the hard way. I didn't drop games, and then I did very poorly in some classes, and then realized that I had to drop some games. So I actually dropped it completely. Didn't touch anything from 2000 to 2015, and then it's actually. And the funny thing is, I've hung out with Lynn like 1 or 2 times, I think, at ReaperCon, and I don't think I've never mentioned this to her. She doesn't know this, but yeah, 100%. Her class was what got me back into miniature painting.
That's awesome.
I just, yeah.
Lynn
like
is like
it was probably, yeah. She's it's I actually didn't. There's a lot changed in miniature painting from 2000 to 2015, because when I left off, it was like heavy metal painting, basically, I was painting exclusively Games Workshop stuff too. So if you said prior to 2015, you said, what is miniature painting? I would have said, oh, it's painting Space Marines just like in White Dwarf, or as close as possible to White Dwarf as you can get them. That's what miniature painting is.
I mean,
and then,
but at least you had a goal. I mean, like that's the thing that I think a lot of people, when they see the gray models in the store, they don't understand that there's like the community behind them. That's the one thing that I give Games Workshop a ton of credit for. They're like, you can do it like this, even though they're like, I love when Vince, and he said this in your guys' video, like it was like a base coat, highlight, complete, like they didn't give you any of the steps. They were really horrible at it. And like when you look at like the Golden Demon winners of that era, like literally anybody starting off painting could probably hit those things with just like a couple days focus, because the boundaries had not been pushed at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it actually did happen. There was a guy in 2004, a Canadian, who was a beginner painter that won a he won a Slayer sword, just because he basically clamped down and just put a ton of time into one model. it's a pretty good looking model, but like it's not great.
Awesome.
It's not like amazing, is it?
But that's awesome though. Like that's
yeah. Well, I'm saying the bar was low.
Yeah, like I part of me, like I look at your work. I should phrase this by saying, when you messaged me on Instagram, I had no idea what Metal AF Minis was. And when I saw the name Benjamin Kantor, I didn't actually, it never registered that I had been admiring your work for a while. I just was like, Metal AF, no, I dig it. This guy's got some good work in here. It's someone I'm going to like keep my eye on. And
Right.
and then I scroll down and I see your one guy holding the axe with all the like chrome armor and the lava, and I was like, oh shit. I like you, that piece for me is like a paradigm shift in how people look at what miniature painting should be done. So part of me wants to congratulate you for breaking my brain, but also like saying fuck you for like making it so much harder for me, because like that bar is like, I'm looking at it like, I don't think I can ever do that, because there's like this amazing amount of magic when I look at your pieces. I'm like how the hell did you like take something this big and be like, no, I understand how light will be like cascading in this room volumetrically. It's not even exaggerated. It's like the fire is right there. It feels so intentional.
So I actually had a revelation about that piece. I think it's just yesterday, which is that I consider that piece like a really old piece.
Yeah, it is. It is old.
Yeah,
It's like,
but that's like one of, if anybody's familiar with my stuff, I think that if you said, oh, what are your like top 3 pieces, that would be in it. And I realized that that piece was, I think I was onto something there that I then like pivoted way out of, and that maybe I should pivot back
into a little bit.
Well, I think what happened was it's actually a stupid reason I pivoted out of it, which is that, you know, I did that one at a time where I was doing 28 millimeter miniatures with like the painted backgrounds, which I actually think is really cool. But then, and I painted like 1 or 2 of those after Slambo. But then when I got a whiff of that we were going to have a golden demon in, at that point, we became aware of it in like, I think maybe Q2 2019. I don't remember at this point. Who knows about time? But
right.
Once I got a whiff of that, I was like, oh well, you know, I guess maybe I should paint something for that, and I guess I'm gonna have to like paint some. But if you look at Golden Demon pieces, historically, there's never been a 28 millimeter Games Workshop miniature with a painted background that has won a Golden Demon. With like maybe 1 to 2 exceptions, but it seems like they're not very good exceptions. Like they don't want that.
Really?
So
okay.
Then I started getting, yeah. So if you look at the past like 3 Games Workshop things I painted, they don't have painted backgrounds, even though I probably would have liked to do that, simply because I was like, oh, I got to like kind of, you know, level up, just like put the miniature on the base and like minimalist base. So that's what they want. But I kind of, whatever, I don't regret anything, but like I have bad feelings about the fact that I did that, just because like I think those pieces are kind of crappy and I'm not really passionate about them, and I would have the time would have better been served just continuing down that same path.
Well, and you know, when I was talking with Shoshi about what she does for her competition pieces, she kind of actively does what people don't want, and because she's pushing herself, you know, like being a competition painter, while you can play for the judge, which is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with it. You know, you're doing your thing, but like, I think if you're someone who is actually working their craft and is trying to use this as their artistic expression, you're on a path like that of like a kung fu master. You are, it's lonely. Sometimes you're not always the good guy because you've put all this time into something that you think is some of the best work that you've done, but because it doesn't fit the criteria of the judging, it may not do as well. And like, as Shoshi said, sometimes she's actively had judges like say aren't painting correct at all. And I think that that's such a messed up thing to say to like you know, someone who is established as she is in the industry. It's like, I don't know if that's correct, but c'est la vie. It is.
Well, I think, yeah, for me, I feel like I have two competing personalities, and like one of them is basically, yeah, like, you know, much more of an artist and way more like, I don't give a fuck about what anybody thinks of my painting. But then the other part of the other side of that is like, just like I'm kind of a min-maxer, and it's like that's definitely how I play games. And so, and if you start to look at the competition through the lens of, oh, this is a game, it's like, well, I see this very clear advantage. Why would I not take an advantage that I can see? I mean,
Sure.
You know, a lot of people actually don't. When I play games with gamers, we have a great time. But when I play games with non-gamers, like a lot of people, like in my social circle, like in Los Angeles, just won't play games with me. I can't turn it off.
Yeah.
Like, so
I know that one. I know that one all too well, unfortunately.
So it's kind of like, you know, there's kind of competing interests in terms of competition, because I'm, you know, definitely aware of like, you know, you know, if you enter a competition, you want to win. So
yeah, of course.
You know,
it's I mean, I don't know. So I've just now started saying competitions are something I want to be in, mainly because I don't have many people close to me who are like, you know, huge like painters. Besides like maybe Chris Surrey, he's got a family. He's, you know, a doctor. There's no like, hey Chris, let's hang out on a Tuesday night and let's paint minis together. Even especially now in like COVID. So I'm looking at these competitions as like ways to push myself to get better. Because like when I played guitar, when I was in bands, I never wanted to hang out with people that I was the best in the room, because I was bored the entire time. I liked being the worst in the room, because then I could like absorb all the knowledge from everybody around me. And that's what I found like my first competition felt like. I was like, please tell me what I'm doing wrong. And from, you know, my first competition last year to the stuff I'm doing now, it just dramatically changed in paint.
Yeah, I think competitions are a huge kind of potentially motivating factor for definitely bringing your best work to the table and meeting a deadline and all that. And
yeah,
I definitely have struggled this year to do anything that isn't. I had my project that I sculpted, and I've got it 3D printed. It's this big Games Workshop themed Warhammer 40k themed diorama, which was originally intended for the Golden Demon.
nice.
And I've got that whole thing. It's sculpted, but then it also includes some bits from Games Workshop, so it's like technically a Games Workshop thing.
Yeah.
Get the whole thing sculpted, and I could have probably painted it by now, but I just do not have the energy to touch it, because it's like, why?
Yeah, dude.
Like, where's it gonna go?
Yeah, what am I gonna do with this thing? And like, and the shitty feeling is that, you know, that by the time that you do paint it, you'll be a better painter than you are today. So it's like, why put in the effort now? Because in 6 months, I'm just gonna be a better painter. Like, so might as well do it while I'm better, right?
Well, yeah, I'm gonna be hopefully a better sculptor too. So maybe I tabulate my painting hours. I don't tabulate my sculpting hours because it's a little more amorphous.
Sure.
But if I had to guess, I probably spent 80 hours sculpting it. So, and so, yeah, but maybe I won't even paint it. Who knows? Like, I don't know.
It'd be such a tragedy. So on your Instagram, you have like this like little bust that you seem to be painting over and over and over again. Is that a piece that you sculpted and is like your practice piece that you are trying different techniques out? Like what is that thing?
That's like my speed for 2020, which is like, that's basically, I can paint it in 1 hour. I can paint it in 4 hours. I can paint it in 10. You can't really push it past 10, but I can basically paint it. There's two of them now. There's a female bust, chick with armor, and then I also have an orc. There's an orc like pirate captain. Or is technically his name. I've named him. He's Rear Admiral Orktober. So I've got two of them, and they're cool because I can print them on 3D printer. They're one piece, so there's no assembly. I just have to clean the 3D print. They have a handle built into the base, so there's no like pinning or mounting or anything. You can just, once you have it cleaned, you can just hold it, and paint it. And yeah, it's pretty chill. I can just bang one out, and then if I don't like it, I can just paint over it. That's my speed right now.
So are you planning on, like, once conventions come up, using that as like a learning tool and like doing classes off of that, and you know, like do like this is how you do a you know, Andy Warhol version of 3 different fierce women heads or orc pirate heads?
Yeah, I thought of it as especially not the orc one so much, because he has more detail on it, but especially the female with armor bust. I was definitely thinking of that one as kind of an academic bust, because she's got a big metal plate, so that's good for like non-metallic metal, and she's got a big like face with big eyes, so you can do like skin tone. You can do eyes, and they're really big. Like even if you're not so good at eyes, there's plenty of room to
You
paint
can
her
still
eyes.
do it. Nice.
Yeah. I tried to get them as big as possible and still look realistic and not look like anime eyes. So, that's kind of how she was originally conceived. But, you know, who knows when we're going to have any conventions at this point. So,
Yeah,
it's
I
a
mean,
bummer.
I know like Duff has done some classes, and I guess Vince has done a couple classes, but I think generally speaking, like that stuff is shut down for. And that bums me out because like one of my favorite parts of conventions is like taking a class. Like I like to learn things. I like to be around people who are enthusiastic about the learning process, and like you know, I definitely feel like that is something that all the people, like, while COVID has been great for the hobby, getting people into it, like I don't think anybody knows what they're missing, right? Decepticon and Gen Con and Nova does classes, like those are the things that are just so good to have in the hobby.
Yeah, I definitely, you wouldn't think you could learn that much from sitting in a class for like 2 or 4 or how many hours. But like, yeah, I think some of my biggest like level ups have come specifically during classes at Adepticon. And also, just like as far as teaching classes, I don't have a huge passion for teaching classes. I don't really care that much. But, I think that the people that I taught at LVO and at ReaperCon, and I think that the people that took my classes generally seem to get something out of it. So to me, it's kind of like, I know some people will actually go to conventions to teach classes as like a financial thing.
Right.
For me, it's like it's something I could do potentially like while I'm at a con, but it's not like that's not when I say I'm not passionate about it. It doesn't mean like I don't try hard to put together a good class, but I'm not passionate about it. But yeah, like I don't know, no conventions, no taking or teaching classes. So this is all we have is talking over the internet.
Yeah. So like, what is Metal AF Minis? Are you trying to do like, is it a commission house? Are you trying to do content creation, busting into like YouTube? Are you, because like it would for me, I mean, and I don't know if this is just like the egoist in me, that I'd be like, my name's fucking Ben Kantor. I did this. Come look at me. Like you have a bit of separation between who you are and what your miniature company name is. Like what are the goals with doing Metal AF Minis?
I have no goals. My goal is to have my goal is to have fun.
Okay, fair.
My goal is to have fun, and I thought early on that I don't know like what direction the fun's going to go in, so that if I have a consistent like iconography and brand, then I'm kind of like covered essentially. Because I've gone through lots of different permutations of like, again, all this is really just I want to paint and have fun, but like I went all the way back to going back to Crystal Rush 2018. I realized again, like min-max try hard, that if I wanted to put in a serious entry, I was going to have something sculpted, and I knew at the time like my sculpting ability wasn't even remotely close.
Right.
So I realized, I'm going to have to pay like quite a bit of money to have somebody sculpt something for me, and then like I guess I could just write it off as a loss. But I was like, well, how can I like get some monetization back on this? And I was like, I can sell it was specifically the piece I'm talking about is the Pharaoh's Curse, which I don't know if you're familiar with. It's like a undead pharaoh with like a scimitar sword thing raised over his head, and he's attacking a thieving rogue. It's a big diorama, and I realized, oh well, I can sell bust versions of the pharaoh, and that like I can get basically try to just make this whole thing break even. Like it's my goal. Like pay this guy, sculpt this thing for me that I want to paint. I get to paint it, great, and then I can sell some busts of it, and that'll pay off what I had to pay the guy to sculpt it for me, and maybe I can make this into like a break-even game. Yeah. Which it was. It was that one was break-even, and I did the same process with the same sculptor with Daddy Issues. That's the one with the chick with the severed head and the fire.
Yeah.
That one is. That was also.
Dude, that one is so cool. I was looking at that today, and I was like, motherfucker, there is so much detail on this, and then like looking at your paint job where you're like, painted in the shadow of like the sword hanging down on the chair. I was like, nobody looks at minis like this. Like nobody looks at that. I was like, that is an incredible job.
Well, yeah, I was pretty passionate about that one. But yeah, so I mean but to go back to the original thing is that's what Metal AF was just supposed to be an umbrella of like, well, I can do whatever I want with this, and it's not like it's just I don't know, it's just a thing. But no, my goal is just to have fun.
I love it. I love that you're doing things like knowing that, and whether you're right or are wrong about having to have a piece sculpted to like win a crystal brush or not. I love the fact that you are taking your ideas and manifesting them. I find so many people when you talk to them about the stuff that they're passionate about that gets them interested, they're like, they're like the cousin Rico from Napoleon Dynamite, where they just keep on talking about the things that they could have done instead of just doing the things that they fucking want to do. And like, it's awesome hearing that you're just like, no, I want to do this thing. Hopefully we can make it a break even. Like that to me is really exciting because one, it means that the next time you have something like this, I'll be watching out for it and hopefully can help you get to that break even point sooner. But also like to know that like, that is your passion. Doing that is it's to me super inspiring, so thank you for giving that right now.
Well, I mean, that's ultimately why I got into sculpting, and actually why I think more miniature painters should be sculptors, is because first of all, I mean, you can realize whatever your vision is, you can realize it, or attempt to realize it. There's that aspect to it. And then also like, if I'm sculpting my own thing and I don't have to pay someone to sculpt it, I don't have to worry about trying to monetize it to make a break even. I can just do whatever I want. Like that's my main, my main goal is just do whatever I want. So, and not be beholden to anyone and not like, rack up like a financial deficit from, I mean, I guess, I don't know. I don't like when people call it a hobby. Like I just think of it as art, but like whatever it is, like I don't feel if it's going to rack up some kind of deficit, like that's a little bit of a feels bad. So,
sure. Absolutely.
So if I can just sculpt my own thing, then it's by definition starts at zero and doesn't start at a negative number.
And I think that you brought up like a really interesting point, and it's something that comes up in the show quite a bit, and is like, you don't like to think of it as a hobby, you like to think of it as art. And I think with what you're doing, you absolutely should think of it that way. But for me, like, paying you the X amount of dollars to get the thing that I'm going to build that I might paint all the way through, maybe paint all the way through, might paint like a third of the way. You never know. Like, it's so weird being on the consumer end of it because it does so much. And the artistic time and the passion that goes into these pieces. And half the time, like, I mean, it's embarrassing how many gray models I have sitting around. Just kind of like looking over my shoulder. I'm like, ugh, like this is someone's passion that I like. I just like leaving in boxes, right? And that is also like a very weird part of that.
Yeah, I've never been cursed with that problem of like having the what is it called, like the closet of
the pile of shame,
pile of shame or whatever. Yeah, I don't have anything.
Really?
I have nothing. Like maybe I've got, I don't know, maybe I did have to dig for something. I don't know. Maybe I've got something in a corner. I don't know. I don't have anything. No. I mean, yeah, it's kind of like I I step one, I figure out what I want to do, and then before I start sculpting, it was like, okay, I need to get the miniature for that thing, and then I execute whatever it is that I'm doing, and then it's like I wouldn't buy something unless it was for like this thing that I'm going to do. So, you know, so that it wouldn't acquire anything extra or like that wasn't part of a thing.
So you wouldn't just like, I think this looks cool, so I want to have it. Like you never felt that about it. You didn't have that sort of. I mean, because to me, it is kind of like the retail therapy of it. I'm feeling a hole in my soul with the stuff that I'm buying.
I think I'm very much a minimalist. I really despise having things around that don't have like a purpose or like a use or or aren't earmarked to do something for me. If it's not like doing something for me, I hate it and I need to eject it from my life. So yeah, I don't have like a bunch of crap. I also live in a like, I mean, for Los Angeles, it's a perfectly, I think, normal size condo. But I mean, you Midwest people would say that I live in like a microscopic condo. Yeah. So like there's no room for anything. It's, you know, I've like no, you know, the like closet space is a premium, cupboard space is like at a premium, and there's no place to put extra stuff at all. So
I mean, you don't want to have 3 storage units out there. I mean, I've heard some of the prices that people pay for fucking storage units out in LA. You're like, Jesus Christ, it's like a mortgage in some states. You know, like, oh, it's got to be hard living out there.
I mean, it's definitely. Well, it's actually funny. Like one of the things I like the most is that, like, you know, I'm on a 3rd floor, so I can. I like, it's for me, it's like a security thing. I need to live in a building where, like, if somebody's gonna like try to murder me, other people can hear me scream and hopefully react. And like there's no like, you know, like windows or doors that people can like creep in. I like a house, just like a normal house, I guess. To me, I always get super freaked out about like windows and doors, and yeah, I have to live in like kind of urban area where I feel really uncomfortable.
I mean, I get that. As I grew up out in the middle of nowhere in Oregon, like literally middle of nowhere in Oregon. I had 242 acres of forest land, and I had more run-ins with crazies out there in the middle of nowhere with no one around, and fucking packs of rabid dogs and bullshit like that. They weren't really rabid, but they killed all of our sheep. You know, like I had more instances of like life-threatening scenarios out in the middle of nowhere than me living in the most dangerous city in the United States. Like, I love living in a city. Like, I have a weird old house, but like I am in the city and it is so nice. I feel like way more at ease here, knowing my neighbors, knowing what's going on around me. You can hear it all. I look at everything. Like, I get it. Like,
those super remote houses, it's like living in a horror movie or something.
Dude, and I grew up in camp trailers out there, so like you couldn't, you know how like camp trailers lock? You don't really lock. Like there was no sense of security for like 5 years of my life. You're just like, I hope I'm tough enough to kill somebody.
Right.
So what do you do in LA? Like what's the draw to LA besides nice weather and you know, being close to like a cultural hub?
I work in the entertainment industry. My wife and I both work in the entertainment industry, so we're here for work.
Okay, all right.
I grew up in Northern California, so it's not that different. You know, just I'm still in California, but specifically Los Angeles is for work.
That's awesome. And what do you use any of your like artistic school skills for the industry that you're in, or is it like I do like lighting and just dream about minis all day?
No, yeah. So no, I work as a film colorist. So there's quite a bit of overlap just in terms of like obviously there's no overlap in terms of technique, but there's a lot of overlap in terms of kind of just high level theory and just how we think about and talk about things.
Interesting. How long have you been doing that?
I guess 12 years.
Okay. So like, you just said that like high level theory and technical kind of ideas is what goes into like minis from your work life. Is that how you have grown to understand like volumetric lighting and the way that like it light cascades in like a scene, and is that like where you grabbed onto those ideas for your miniatures?
I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, that's what I went to school for was cinematography. So like lighting and camera work and stuff like that. So, that's what I spent like 3 years of my life doing essentially.
That's fantastic. I like I love knowing that your like work life can inspire your creative side as well, and probably your creative side can also like affect your work life, as like you dream and you get more into it, and maybe find sculpting and 3D modeling is something that you can use in other aspects of your job. That's pretty interesting that you can have something kind of trade back and forth like that.
Yeah, I mean, miniature painting is like 10 times more fun than my job, though. So like, just put that out there.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's a lot of things that come across your table that are nowhere near as fun as painting minis.
Yeah, I think technically I'm not allowed to say if a specific show isn't fun, but if you look me up on IMDb and you see a show that seems like it wouldn't be fun, I guarantee you it's way less fun than the worst version of it that you think that it might be.
Oh no.
So,
dude, I believe it. I absolutely believe it. And it can't all be roses, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's the that's a great thing about miniature painting is you can, like I said, the goal is do whatever I want. The part of the problem with my job as a colorist is that sometimes you get stuck doing the same thing over and over, and sometimes the first time it's super fun because you're figuring out new techniques and like new ways to do things, but then you realize you have like 12 more episodes and that you basically, now it was fun getting locked in, but now you basically have to like repeat it for like 3 more months every single day. That's not fun.
That sounds absolutely miserable. And there's no like I don't even know what a colorist does. Like I would imagine back in the day it was like literally you would sit over negatives and figure out ways to enhance the Technicolor whatever, but now everything's got to be done with fucking 3 knobs and computers, and like you're going through. Are you like tweaking?
Yeah, I've actually got my 3 knobs right. I've got the home edition. The board that I have at work is like a airplane cockpit, but I've got my home edition 3 knobs right here.
Yeah, I'm just now looking at all these things. The content creation is taking me in a very weird path because like I fucking suck at almost everything that I do when I start, but I get really obsessed about learning about it. So whenever I do, I feel like I'm doing my best effort, or I'm putting my best foot forward with the tools that I have. And I've been looking at camera rigs and things, and it's like I don't even understand what any of this shit does. But it's fascinating to me. I love tools, and I love seeing what different industries are doing, because like I'm a fucking picture framer. I love picture framing, but our technology hasn't changed in like 20 years. Like ever since like the first mat cutter, like the CMC mat cutter came out, it's like been like incremental changes. Like there hasn't been anything revolutionary, and like people are just now finally starting to use computers to write their tickets in my industry. So like I feel completely unstimulated by my job, as like I feel like I'm trying to find ways to push it every single day, and there just isn't ways to push it.
Yeah, I get that. I would say though that it's interesting though, because like in my industry things did have changed dramatically when I graduated, when I went to film school. Like when I got out of film school 12 years ago, we were still shooting on film, and we were color grading, doing the color digitally, but it was like it was a scan of the negative. So that it's a completely different process of like ingesting that and working on it and how we were thinking about it. But now obviously it's all digital. But at the same time, so it's like technically, yeah, that's changing very dramatically. But on a day to day, it doesn't feel like it's changing at all. It just feels like the same shit. Like, yeah, it's like the for like a frog in boiling water kind of thing, it's like it does not seem. Yeah, the tools definitely don't change so dramatically that it feels like it's exciting.
Yeah. I mean, but one day you'll be dead, and that's exciting because that is a permanent change that happens, right?
Right. Well, yeah, that's
the frog in the boiling water. And, and now I'm not in the same industry.
Right. That's the dark take on it, but yes.
I mean, we're in the murder basement. Like mentally, I think it goes there. I think that's like super cool though. Like I love the idea of, with me, my work it's not matching the white mat. It's not matching the fabric. I'm matching the way light reflects off of these things to create a composition that is pleasing to the eyes. It isn't exactly the color. It isn't exactly the texture. It is, reading what the other person is wanting. And I've realized that makes me look at miniatures in a totally different way, as I'm not looking at not looking at this dude's purple ass cloak. I'm looking at the way light's going to roll off of it. I'm looking at the highlight points. I'm looking at how it's going to look from 3 feet away while I'm playing a game with it. I'm thinking about miniatures so much more holistically than I think I ever would have if I wouldn't have done picture framing, which is a very interesting thing to think about, that, like picture framing doesn't do any of the things that miniature painting does, but all the theory about why we, frame things and display them on the wall is the exact same reasons why you paint competition pieces and paint them. So, like, I'm always fascinated by that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I don't know anything about picture framing. I've definitely paid to have my pictures framed, but I would think that as framing pictures, you'd have to. I imagine that most people come in, they don't really know what they want. They just want it to look good, and that you basically have to know when they come in with like a painting that's blue. It's like, is this going to work if I basically, am I going to go take a complementary route, or am I going to like blue on blue, or am I just going to go desaturated frame? Like, I feel like there's different paths of like. You basically have to know how that picture exists within like the realm of color theory in order to frame it properly.
Right.
I would think.
And you're not wrong. Of which there's like, I never took any classes for it. Like just to be like 100% honest, like if I'm wearing anything that looks nice and or put together, it's because my wife picked it for me, because she's like way better at all that stuff. Like I'm like the black t-shirt, black pants, like it's all black or gray, you can't mess it up. And so like that was always me. And so when I was put into like the world of picture framing, my idea was not like, I want this frame to like accentuate this part of the print. I would always do things like, here's a nice gold frame, but here's the wild card, because this has a tree, it's tree texture ties back into the piece. And so like telling a visual narrative as you look outside in, like this is here and this is here. So I'm like more of a thematic framer, which is really funny because like we have one employee and she is like color theory master on it, like memorizes Pantone colors and shit like that. She is so fast at picking things, but sometimes it's super clinical. People are like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, come out and like, look at this weird thing. That is wild. Like you can convince people to look at their pieces as more than just the colors that are in them, and tell a story on their wall, and that it kind of makes people feel like they have like a narrative in their house. And so like I look at like the idea of like, this piece is important to these people for a reason, and so we need to have that piece tell the story of the people in the house, so they don't have the same thing, that you're not going to walk into 3 houses down the street and have the exact same shit on the wall. Even if it is the same piece, it's going to be different people, so it'll tell a different story.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that choosing something clearly there isn't one right answer, and clearly it isn't clinical. I think that there's different lines of thinking to use to justify different things. But
So something that early on when we first started talking, you started mentioning your experimental phase. And that's something that I'm really interested in because I think I'm kind of running into that same thing because, you have obviously like mastered, aspects of this art form. Specifically for you, I would 100% call it an art form because of how you're doing it and how holistic it is to you. Um, like, what does an experimental phase look like for you? Like, is it playing with the story? Is it playing with the narratives? Is it these weird sketches of you like doing heads multiple times different ways? Like, what is an experimental phase?
I think that, well, first of all, I just want to kind of counter the narrative. I don't think any of us are really masters of anything. I think that's like a contrivance. But
Sure, I gotcha.
but okay. I think that well, I think I've gone through phases of basically, and I think my phases of painting, and I only know this in hindsight, basically going back and looking at my work, but I think that I've gone through phases of like experimentation and like expansion and then contraction, and I think that those phases have actually been dictated by the convention schedule.
Okay.
Because if I'm trying to like try hard for something like Adepticon, that means like right when Adepticon is over, I have like no big pressure to do anything specifically, so I can kind of do whatever I want.
Uh-huh.
And then as we get closer and closer, I start to have to get a little more serious, and like I can't just do whatever I want. And now I'm thinking about a big like showpiece, and I'm taking basically everything I've learned over the past year, and I'm like kind of trying to cement it. And like I'm not taking any chances anymore. I was taking chances 6 months ago, but now I'm like, we're gonna take what we learned 6 months ago, we're gonna put it in a piece, and this is I'm not gonna 6 months ago, this would have been a chance, but now I'm not taking a chance. I'm just executing.
Yeah.
But that's kind of gotten messed up because there's no conventions anymore. So now I've just been in like a free fall, in one big long experimental phase. And I think as far as what that looks like, I think that's, and in terms of technique, I think it's about kind of just going in with like less and less of a plan. If you look at, you were talking about like Slambo, the guy with the chrome armor and the axes.
Yeah.
I had that before I put any paint, before I even bought the model. I had a Photoshop art that I did of basically how it was going to look.
Really? Okay.
I posted it on my blog. It looks basically like the final thing. I hadn't even bought Slambo the model at that point.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and like so that was kind of my process. I think that's a fine process, but I think for me, experimentation is more like just starting something and not knowing where it's going to end up.
Sure.
And also not necessarily if something's happening like while I'm painting that I think is wrong or that I think might be a big mistake, that like leaning into that sometimes just to see where it'll go rather than trying to like course correct. Because again, if it's something that I'm taking super seriously, I might course correct out of that. But especially now, I'm just, if something looks weird, I'm like, all right, let's see if we can make it look weirder. So, especially with this little bust that I've been painting, it's kind of like, who cares?
Well, and I mean, the weird stuff to me, so like music is the same way. Like you can, like, I had friends like the band Muse, like, I liked Muse for the fact that I could always count on it to do a certain thing. And I had friends who were like, I fucking hate the band Muse because it is so clinical. There is no room for human expression. It's all like acrobatics and, dexterity tricks and shit like that. And I was like, well, I mean, like the songwriting's very good. And they're like, yeah, but like, where's the soul? Where's the, and then, you sit down and they're like, listen to this weird Rolling Stones song, and like you're listening to Wild Horses and you're hearing the bass line go in the background and you realize that the bass player plays the wrong fucking note in the middle of a chorus, and it's just like glaringly wrong. It is wrong. But like those human elements are what makes the composition together feel Rolling Stones. You take that out, it starts to become, fucking like Steely Dan or some shit, it becomes this song that doesn't have like, it's all polish and like you don't have the same sort of like resonance with it. And so when I look at like painting minis in the same way, like I don't plan shit. I completely go off of my gut because I'm like, I want to see a purple cloak, I want some fucking green skin, and I want to see some contrast happen here, and I'm going to do it in X amount of hours. I'm just going to execute. And I lean into like literally whatever the paint does, and I rarely find myself having to go back and be like, I hate what I did here, because it's just like it's instinct, it's animal drive to get something done at that point now. And I think that the mistakes aren't mistakes. They are like my characteristics. They're the things that like drive what I like to do.
Yeah, I think also, for me, it's kind of like I've definitely gone through a process of painting more and more organically. I think if you go back 2 years ago, there's part of the intentionality behind like the fact that I had a goal was also that I was I wasn't painting organically. I wasn't like sketching, for example. I was kind of doing, I guess I would call it like sloppy layering, maybe.
Okay.
But now I think now specifically, I exclusively start with a sketch when I'm painting, and that basically I don't even move past the black and white sketch until feel like I found something that's like worth moving forward with. Like, so if the black and white, yeah,
just like base coat, black and white, no color, no nothing. From what color primer do you start?
So it starts black, and then I sketch with black and white, and I don't move past the black and white phase until I'm feeling like real jazzed about it.
That's
and if I don't get there, then I just start over.
How long do you spend doing black and white, like on average? Like, because to me, like I'm hearing this and my brain is like, why?
So I think it's several things. First of all, whether or not in a piece of, regardless, I'm going to say miniature, but any kind of artwork works, is mostly has to do with just values. So,
okay,
that's what's our eyes, where we look is determined more so by value contrast than color contrast, or by textural contrast, or any other types of contrast. It's our primary thing that we respond to. So if it doesn't work, it's like, if it doesn't work as black and white, it's never going to work, period. If it's great with color, but it's not so good with black and white, it's probably not good. So it's the first thing you need to have work before, like, I think as I'm saying this, I'm thinking of all these exceptions, like my Joseph Albers color theory book on my bookshelf is screaming at me right now, but I think that's like 90% true.
Sure. No, and actually I get it. I mean, like, look at how many people are colorblind but still manage to appreciate art and appreciate sculpture. Like the colors that you use aren't all of it, and sometimes the people who are blind are painting these like masterpieces, like the like water lilies. Like Monet was blind by the time he did that. Beethoven deaf. You see these things happen in the art world all the time, and I never would, like the reason why I zenithal prime stuff, it's not because I'm like, I'm gonna use thin paints and I'm gonna like keep my highlights in from the get-go. I zenithal prime because my eyes suck and I can't see the model anymore, and so it gives me like a clear definition of like, this is a forehead and this actually has a brow. It's my cheater.
Well, I do the same thing, but it's kind of like more like if I start slapping paint on, and if my brush hits it, then I know that it's volume.
Okay. So do you like dry brush, or is it like how do you do it?
So it's actually funny. Just absolutely coincidentally, I put out a video today, because I don't do videos. I had done a couple of videos without narration, but I actually put out a video earlier today where I do the black and white sketch process, and I have a little narration in there talking about like why I'm doing what I do. And by the way, making videos is awful.
It's horrible. It's the fucking worst.
I did it kind of just as an experiment to see how much I would enjoy it or not enjoy it, and I think it actually looks relatively polished because just I work in the media entertainment industry, so I kind of know what I'm doing. But it was like it was not fun. So
Voiceovers and things of that nature, when you're like, I know what I want to say, but I don't want to have to direct my video while I'm working on my video. Like, it's frustrating.
But I did like, it was interesting because in having to talk about my own process, it was actually helpful in thinking more about why I do what I do. And yeah, I think that the black and white sketching process is about choosing how you're going to define the volumes of the miniature or of the model. It's like you're basically making your like most core decisions about how you're just how you're going to define those volumes and where you're going to put your value. And if you start putting color in there, it's not that you couldn't do a color start with a color sketch, but I think you're more likely to get off track. You're more likely to just go down like a color rabbit hole and think that you're making progress when in fact like you're developing too much color contrast when you should be developing value contrast.
Okay, interesting. And so, like, are you like dry brushing? Are you going detail brush, like going through, like hitting your spots over and over again? Like walk me through that, like, because it just feels like to me, and maybe it's an awesome experiment. Like I'm now like my brain is like, what can I try this on? I want to try this right now.
Well, I was to say, if you have a 3D printer, you can download my female academic bus and give it a shot.
I do.
More people should.
I was going to ask that. Is that one that I can like play with that on? Because that sounds really fun.
Is it a resin printer?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, then yeah, you're set. It's a free download. You can just download it. I want people to paint it. I think like maybe 50, 60 people have downloaded it so far. I've only seen 3 versions of it because like I think a lot of people download stuff and then either sit on it and don't print it, or print it and then it just goes in their like shame pile or whatever. I was like, 50 downloads. Am I going to see 50 versions of this? No, I've seen like 3.
Okay.
But 3 really good ones.
Okay.
Right. 3 really good ones and three ones that actually made me think about my own sculpt differently. So
really, okay.
That was pretty cool. But you're asking about the actual technique that I use is, I think most people call it wet blending. I don't, but it's like, it's hard to explain because like to me it's just painting, but it's kind of just, I'm just looking at the miniature and I'm reacting and I see where if I want more value, I just slap some white on. If I want less value, I just go down the grayscale. And I'm just doing it fast enough and that it's not that the paint never dries, but I'm doing it fast enough that I'm just keeping the whole thing wet the entire time.
Yeah, sure.
And just keep moving. And I'm not worried if it does start to dry a little bit. I don't care. I'll just paint right over it. And like that whole like dried paint ring thing you get, I'll just put more paint on top of it. So it's just like constantly just paint. And I'm kind of like slow roasting the thing, kind of going over it, so that there is a little bit of drying happening. Like I'll slap some paint on the face and then I'll move down to the neck and then I'll move like around the side of the head. And then by the time I get to the face is kind of dried. So I never like stop to like let it dry, or it's just constantly, everything's just constantly like kind of blending into each other in like a slow roast basically.
So is that how you paint, like just in general, the same sort of mentality? Because so many people like have like when they eat dinner and they have to separate like my mashed potatoes can never touch my meat, like they have things that they definitely do in order. Are you like a holistic painter where like when you start tackling a model, you're working like the whole area instead of like, I am today only doing this?
Right. Yeah. I think I don't have any rules. Like there's definitely no rules. Like definitely everything is always fair game. Like nothing, like if I'm working on the eyes and I see something I don't like on the lips, I'm just going to work on the lips. But it's not like I'm saying, oh, the lips are done. No, lips aren't done. No, like, never. And I'm not, I don't, there's basically just no rules. I don't have a plan as far as what I'm going to tackle. I just look at it and I just look at what is like, where does it need improvement, or what part of this needs to be more developed. And I just keep developing until it's developed, until I decide that it's done, until I decide that it's developed. I think that's the ideal situation.
I think you and I paint the exact same way, because like I I get a little ADD. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to let this paint dry and see what it looks like, because inevitably the color saturation or the value of it is different once it has dried. Sometimes you're like, this needs to go brighter, this needs to go lower. And so like I will, move on to different parts, but like I work an entire model time, and it's like, oh, I like this. Like, ooh, a piece of candy. Ooh, a piece of candy. And then 3 hours have disappeared, and I'm like, I have gone through a time machine. This is fantastic.
Right. Well, that's why painting's so chill. But I mean, I think it's definitely less chill when it's like, it's a bigger piece, like more complex piece with sub-assemblies or things that, because like of brush blockage, you have to paint this part before you paint this part. Like that's always kind of a bummer. But I think my tolerance for that has probably gone down this year, because, a lot of the stuff I've painted is all really, really complex with a lot of moving parts. And I don't remember being annoyed about it at the time, but now I'm just like, I can't deal with that.
I have the new Creature Caster Keen of Malefica. It's the first piece that I'm like actively going to have to do sub-assemblies, because it is like, not throwing shade, but it is everything in the kitchen sink. There's so much going on there, and it's so many different layers, and that might actually be a good one to try out, your color value sketch. The black and white value sketch, because I need it to be like, it's got so many different surfaces and it's got so many different things. I'm like, how do I refine this piece down? Because it's almost too much to look at. And when like I love how James Wapple paints, but there are so many different colors and so many different textures on this thing. I'm like, my eyes don't know what I'm looking at. And it makes me wonder if I can take that and distill it down to something more primal, and if that even matters. Like, when I look at other people's models and what they do in their paint jobs, I always am looking at them as like, is this something that I would do? And if it is, why is this the thing I'm looking at? Yeah, that's the way I want to do it. And so like when I see your models, like when I look at what you do, I'm inspired by them, but I actively am like, I don't think I will ever be able to do this at the same way. And so it's like people playing the same song just different ways, and running at it a different angle to see if I can bring something else out, or a different expression in.
Well, that's the great thing about the black and white sketch, is that, if you start there, there's all kinds of different places you can go from there. You can, if you have a black and white sketch that you like, you could leave it. You could airbrush ink over it. You could just paint ink over it. What I do is I just paint color over it, not ink, but just paint. And like, not so, I kind of just use the black and white as a guide, really. Because I'm kind of just painting over my own work, honestly. But I know that if I honor what I did, that it's going to work, and I don't have to worry about it.
So do you not use ink with a brush at all?
I know I use ink all the time, but I don't. They just using what I don't use just ink. Like I usually pick like some colors, and I have like a opaque version and an ink version of it, and I'll usually start more opaque, and then I usually go more and more transparent as I start to finish.
Okay.
Like definitely towards the end, it's like I'm basically just like glazing with inks.
Okay.
So it's not like I'm sketching the whole, like, it's just a question of how sketchy something looks, is like how much time did I spend sketching it versus how much time did I spend like, all that's like fine glazing or whatever. Because you can glaze the crap out of something. You could spend like 50, 100 hours glazing something and make it look like it's not even painted, which is like incredibly boring. But, it's something you can do. I mean, it's something to do.
And so many people love that super smooth look. And what I've loved about like your newer models and the newer things that you do is like, you're leaving a lot of brushstrokes. You're leaving a lot of like harsh contrast lines. And I love that stuff. I think that, some of my favorite paintings when I see them in person aren't the ones that are like photorealistic and in depth. They're the ones that, you can see, like the intention and the execution of this needs to be this, but like we don't need to paint this part because this isn't the focus. So then it starts to get blurry and more abstracted, and that's something that I feel like because models are so small, even like the bigger models, we're still talking really small. I I haven't seen anybody play with that sort of idea as like the face is the focus and the rest is fuck all. Like that's something I'm also really interested in seeing, like that sort of idea with playing with an art piece. You know, it seems like everything right now has to be totally smooth. You know, nice edge highlighting. You know, it just, to me, like it feels like the competition pieces are, while beautiful, they're fucking boring, and I want to see more like just raw expression in them, and I'm not seeing that in the miniature world at the moment, except for in a couple tiny little corners. But it seems like en masse, everybody's still chasing that smooth blend that I don't know, mentally I'm over that. I don't want to do that anymore.
Well, I think, I mean, I don't know. I think smoothness has its place. I think I'm definitely, for my stuff, at least lately, I'm definitely trying to, whatever the point of focus is, I'm definitely trying to make it super, super refined. And then I think like as it fades out from that point of focus, that's where I'm like letting things, that's just I think probably my style or something. But I think that I don't think there's inherent problem, or I don't think smoothness is inherently good or bad or boring or not boring. But I think that when you have something and someone's insisting on making every single part of it smooth, equally as perfect as possible, I think my criticism of that was just that it's probably a missed opportunity.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean,
yeah, like, you're not. Yeah,
you I mean, color, film, you understand the idea of like in animation, like you did an actual like 60 frames a second like animation drawing, whereas like you did every part of the movement from here to there. Like this would be this weird mechanical movement, when really it needs to be like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sort of thing to make it actually look like an actual pendulum going back and forth. Like everything's smooth, your eyes look at it and like I start to not know what to look at. I start to look at, like, I lose focus. Like I'm instantly kind of like mystified, but also like what am I looking at here? Where when I do see like I sometimes I see people like models halfway through and I'm like, that's beautiful, and I see their finished piece and I'm less happy with it. I'm like, but you had something so good like 10 hours ago. Like, stick with the 10-hour ago thing.
it's funny too because we're like ragging on smoothness a little bit, but like the elephant in the room here is like the whole banshee hashtag fuck smoothness thing, which I don't support that at all, actually, because
Really?
I think that his message has been maybe tainted a little by his personality and being a little too aggressive.
Yeah, right.
It's because it's not fuck smoothness. Like if I had a hashtag movement, mine would be like hashtag smart smoothness. Like it's it's like there's no nuance in this fuck smoothness message. There's like zero nuance. It's zero nuance.
It's the new metal of miniature painting. There's no nuance.
And if you like talk to him or listen to an interview or take one of his classes or like interact with him, he'll be like, oh no, everybody misunderstands it because what I'm really trying to say isn't fuck smoothness. What I'm really trying to say is that nuanced message. And it's like, well, then it's not a good message if you are constantly having to explain what you're really.
It's not a good message.
Yeah. So no, I actually don't. I think we're pretty much actually on the same page about how we feel about it. It's just that it's way too aggressive of a message, and there's no nuance to it. So it's incorrect. Don't fuck smoothness. Think about smoothness. Be smart about it.
Do you ever like Twitch stream or do anything live in front of people?
No, that's not my painting time. Is definitely a very, very personal chill time. Yeah. Not a like socialization, like looking up at my screen. Thanks for the sub. So and thanks for the 6 months. Whatever they do, I don't know.
I mean, you nailed it. That is exactly what we say every single day.
Yeah, no, I've seen some of the streams, so it's like I don't want to be that person.
It's hard, man, and like you have people asking you questions all the time about why you're doing something, and your initial reaction is just like, I'm just fucking painting, man. Like just like have fun with this. Like I want more people to be I think if there's one message I can tell everybody that I wish that they were more confident. You are a beautiful person. You are a beautiful creative that it needs to learn how to like trust their intuition and their guts, because you can do it. You know these things. You watch the YouTube videos. You've probably even painted pretty well. But like every single time somebody talks to me about why I'm doing something, like I want them to know that like they don't have to do it to like the nth degree. Like I love a model that I stop at like 70% and I'm like, nope, this is pretty cool right now. Like that extra like 30% to the final, everything's totally refined is like my least favorite part of a model, which is probably why I'll never take first place in any. But I want people to feel like comfortable in their skin and in their abilities, and to just throw paint. Like just get paint on it. I want people to work wet. I want people to work in layers. I want them to do whatever they're comfortable with, but I want people to like actually own what they're doing instead of always looking for the next like shortcut to get the best thing. I'm like, the shortcut is paint for 10,000. I'm obsessive about it. Dream about the model that you're working on. Understand what that thing would look like if it was this big, if it was actual real life, and then work on it small. Like I want people to trust who they are creatively. And one thing that Twitch has like proven to me is most miniature painters just flat out don't trust their intuition. And that kind of breaks my heart a little bit, because I think that we could have so many cool people and, you know, pushing the industry and pushing different ideas if they just, you know, laid themselves on the altar of paint. You know, it's like, you know, worship the god of resin and just played with it, actually had fun with it.
Yeah, I think one of the things we don't talk about is the difference between technique and artistry. Like I think we put technique on a little bit of a pedestal, and I think, you know, I always, if there's a bust or a miniature that I didn't sculpt that I want to paint, I always do like recon and look at like every painted version of it that I can find. And
Sure.
Usually, like sometimes, I mean, depends, but very frequently my favorite version is by some like a person who I've had previously heard of, and that like isn't like, you know, a big painter or whatever, but they have some, and then their technique maybe kind of sucks, but they found there's an idea there, like an idea about color, about like how, you know, the color relationships, or there's some kind of idea there that's like, oh, that's like a great idea, and that's like my favorite version. And then, you know, so then I steal their color scheme and do better technique. And, no, I'm just kidding. But I mean, maybe, I think I've probably done that once, but I mean, everything's fair game. But definitely there's people who have like great color instincts that can't execute technique at all. And I think those are, I mean, sometimes are more interesting to look at than something that's just like perfect technical execution.
Right.
So,
you know,
yeah.
I always look at like Eenie Meenies is right now she's playing in the oil world. It seems like half the people on Twitch who are painting are playing in oils, of which I don't know if I will ever be ready to make the jump to do full oils, because I like things to dry, and I like to like not have to worry about not touching my model for a couple days. Like I just like the way acrylics work, and I feel really cozy in them. But the way that she uses her lights to her shadows, like just straight up putting like blue in the shadow, like blue, and you're like, that's not even a good shadow color. And then when she adds her highlight on top of it, it becomes this like beautiful like round object, and you're just like, you have some weird color magic going on there that like my guts would never do what you're doing. And like every time I watch her paint, I'm like inspired to try something that I never do. I never lean into the things that I learned from watching her, because I don't know if I'm at that bold yet. And like every time I watch her paint, she just always does something, or I'm like, I don't know if that's gonna. Oh, that worked, and that was beautiful. And that's the interesting thing about Twitch is like you can watch someone do it live, and like they may be like talking with like chat, but there is something that it's like the intuition, the artistry of it is happening. It's not the technique. It's so stream of consciousness. It's almost like jazz painting. I don't know.
Right.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely I think when I'm painting, I'm definitely feel that way in terms of like just reacting to things and like just going in certain directions. I just would never want to do it on camera, like live.
Yeah, it's I've definitely had some embarrassing moments. Like not unlike being in a band.
Yeah. It also just feels like you're probably just constantly being just distracted. Like for me, I just like to get locked in.
You
And
know,
so if you're constantly
so I don't know, like distraction is sometimes good for me because like it makes me really loose. Like I feel like a radio DJ instead of like an entertainer, you know, like just feel like I'm kind of talking it out and playing and you know like I like painting in groups of people just because there's something about if you can be in a room with people that are better than you, it's awesome being in. And so I like that communal aspect of painting if you get it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely enjoy painting with people at conventions. But that's like a little different. You can like pass them your mini and have them look at it, and it's a little different than like a chat stream, I guess.
Yeah, 100% different than a chat stream. We've gone like well over our hour that I asked of you. But Ben, I really appreciate you hanging out with me tonight and talking shop and paint. You have definitely convinced me to try things maybe a little bit differently and think about my models from a more like holistic place. You know, starting with the value sketch and actually working the sketch, like not doing a zenithal from start. One of my favorite things I like to ask is coming from a sales background. We always have our stupid ass acronyms for everything. And the BHAG, the big hairy audacious goal, like 2020 is a wash. What's your big hairy audacious goal of 2021, sir?
Well, you know, like I said, I only ever have one goal: to just keep having fun. I don't have any. That's it.
That's
Just
it?
not continue to have fun in miniature painting and not put myself in a situation where it's not fun anymore.
Yeah, well, I think that is always the. It would be tragic. This like art form, this hobby, this whatever it is to you, became something that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we were having a golden demon, I think I'd probably have some ambition to try to win a Slayer sword, but I don't think that's going to happen. So, you know, just going to try to I continue sculpting, continue putting out things for other people to paint and have fun. And, you know, this is like one of the reasons I wanted to come on the show was because, you know, I think that I didn't realize you know, the void that was going to be left of the communal aspect of things when the cons went away. So I think like this is all we have now is like, you know, just chatting with people over the internet. It's kind of this is what we have left.
It's not the worst world. It's not my preferred world, but I'm glad that people like you are here and are receptive and want to talk and engage. And I'm glad that you are pushing this industry in a way that I think the idea of, you know, giving away a sculpt like as like a teaching tool is it's so cool. Like I'm gonna download this afterwards, and it gives me a reason to like open up my 3D printer this weekend and figure out why the hell I had failed prints and actually like do it again because I want to do more with that, and I love the idea of like being challenged by other painters and seeing what they do, seeing if I can add anything to the narrative. Uh, and so like the fact that you do that, thank you so much for giving that.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you paint it, or if anyone else paints it, like at me, or show me, because I want to see it. Like, that's the whole point. That's why. I mean, I'd rather give these sculpts away for free and like have 50. I mean, who knows how many of those 50 plus people so far will actually paint it? But let's hopefully 50 to 100 people paint it, then like charge a few bucks for it and like have it be a tenth of those numbers. Like that, I don't care about like the however many dollars. Like, I want people to paint it. I want to see your versions, because I learn about my own sculpts when I see other people paint them.
Let's start calling motherfuckers out, like, because that there's probably some kick-ass painters. Get on this. Let's do
yeah, because it's good. The downloads are through CG Trader, so I can see the handles, and sometimes the CG Trader handle matches the handle of like the people from other social media. So I'm like, I see that I definitely have like been like clocked people of like, oh, I hope they paint it.
Well, you should.
We'll see.
You should definitely send a message like just like, hey, watching you do something cool.
Yeah, I'll call everyone out. That's fine.
That's right. I mean, like, it's at this point, I'm all about like us making our own fun, because like it's not like a little bit of ribbing hasn't made people like get more involved in the past. Like I kind of actually like the idea of like asking people to do the things that they say they're going to do. Like, hey, let's do this. It's fun. Let's get in this. Let's move.
Yeah. Well, that's fine. I'll call you out too if I see that you downloaded.
100% do it, because and if I tell you that I couldn't figure out my 3D printer, it's probably a lie.
Okay. Cool. Well, I look forward to seeing your version.
Excellent. Ben, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you'd like to push before we're done today?
No. Download my bus, social media, blah blah blah, whatever.
Yeah. And your videos on YouTube, Metal AF Minis.
Yeah, that's where it is. I just put out today. I hadn't done any videos, so I've like close to zero, probably a single digit integer of subscribers, which is just I had previously just done like posted the videos on like Instagram and stuff. So this one had narration, so I had to put it up on YouTube.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. That's where I go get all my learning done. So I'll definitely give you a sub, and we'll make sure that there's links to all this stuff in the show notes.
Awesome,
man. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks for having me on. It's fun.
Thank you for making it through another episode of Hobby Time in the Murder Basement. I really appreciate your support. If you'd like to continue the support in other ways, I do have a Patreon. The link is down below. Proceeds from that will go to pay for new equipment, subscription fees if I need it, and graphic design stuff. I'd like to help build this channel. So any of your support is, while never necessary, is always appreciated. If you want to see more hobby stuff, you can head on over to Twitch. I generally stream on Sundays at noon. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.